welcome back. We want to continue on with Sedot, reading chapter 7, verses 2 and 3 in the Hebrew, but we have a few notes to consider. So last time we considered these four messengers to be the angels, because it's angels, of the first four trumpets. So the first four trumpets are very physical. So when we look at the 6 days of creation, which we also compared them to, days 6 and 3 parallel with trees being compared to righteous people or Adam. So we draw this parallel, but it's more like the second half of the creation week, the 4th, 5th, and 6th, because the first four trumpets seem to be very physical, whereas the first half of the creation week, they parallel, 1, 2, 3 parallels 4, 5, 6, has to do with more spiritual. So this is going actually backwards, like you're unraveling time, because you're starting with more like day 6, you're going backwards dealing with trees / righteous first. So the physical version of this first. And the second thing, the middle one, is the water. So the second and third trumpet is first dealing with salt water and then fresh water. And then, so that parallels with the second day of creation and the 5th day with the birds and the fish. And then the 4th angel parallels with lights, which are supposed to illuminate earth. So the first light is kind of more like spiritual of day 1, and then we see these physical lights in day 5. So with the 4 trumpets, you really see the physical effect. But if we have another messenger, he could be the 5th angel. So we actually see this pattern repeated. So before we get to the 5th, 6th, and 7th trumpets, we could consider what direction these 4 angels are standing, because if it's the 4 ends of the earth, I think we would assume that it's north, south, west, and east, unless there's somewhere where all the ends of the earth join and they're actually all standing in one place. So if it's the 4 ends, so east, the first one can point us back to Adam. He's supposed to be like, east is what is ancient, and also like where this righteous and tree, day 6. So this first trumpet, first dealing with what Adam's supposed to represent, which is a tree which bears fruit. So he's coming from the east because God plants a garden eastward in Eden. So Judah also being with the east. So we're kind of also tying this in with this pattern of the 4 horsemen, the 4 lives, the 4 living creatures. So then the second and third one dealing with waters, the calf. So the second trumpet points us to how the 10 tribes destroy the harlot, and this is Babylon being cast into the sea, as I understand it, a great mountain burning with fire. So as a result of the heavenly battle, where he sends out with his bow Judah, the 10 tribes, to defeat the heavenly Babylon, which we've discussed previously, and this falls into the sea. So demonstrating that it's connecting with the second horseman, the standard of Ephraim, who has this calf who's like with the 10 tribes. And then the third one with the wells of water, instead of going like flat south and north, we could go like going down and going up. So wells of water being associated with the deep, And also the deep being associated with wisdom, like the wisdom of Egypt. So like coming from that direction, that could be the third messenger. And so these winds are going to be blowing from all four directions at once, which also parallels us with the fourth horseman, because previously God dealt out this wrath individually, like one of his plagues at a time, but never all at once. So that's what we're going to see with the day of the wrath of the Lamb. So you can tie in these four messengers with the four lives. So the fourth one, like with the eagle from the land of the north, so this is kind of like what's up, because if it was just the sun, you'd think eastward, but also the moon and the stars. So it's kind of like the shriveling of the fig tree here, where let no one receive light from you anymore, because these were worshipped, connected with these angels and whatever, not deities that were false. So it's kind of like a shriveling also of these lights, so that it's like, let no one ever receive light from you again to think that you're something great. And then in the future, these being sevenfold, like the sun being sevenfold. So if we're surrounded by a ice wall, then like say that we're only like our continents total the amount of 2 eagles, then it could be like a total of 12 eagles or something like that, because Esdras talks about that. So if the sun actually had a larger span where it shone in more areas, then previously when we're talking about like Adam being this huge giant, you understand how they have more land to spread out in. And right now our light is so diminished, it's just shining on this small 7 continents. So the light of the sun being increased sevenfold could mean that it just has a larger path. And so if it's decreased a thirdfold, then maybe it just doesn't shine, like say in the south, or like a certain area. So then it either gets covered with ice then or something like that. So it might not just be that the sun shrinks by a third and then a little bit later it increases sevenfold. It could just be that it's has a smaller path. So then this fifth messenger, I was noticing that it ties in with the trees. You must not damage the green plants or the plants of the field or the trees. That's funny because the first 4 were specifically able to harm the trees, and now we're including plants. So they have this authority to damage them, but now when we're kind of going backwards, because we're going like 6th day, 5th day, 4th day, we're going backwards, we're unraveling time. And so now when we get to like the 3rd day, except more like spiritually with trees, it's actually showing us that it's representing people, because it's like, don't damage any of the things that have life, greenery, but only the sons of man who do not have the seal. So these are things that represent death, not growth, not fruit. So anybody who has the Spirit is how we're bearing fruit, right? First fruits. These are the first fruits. So definitely a tie-in now where we can see this being repeated. The first trumpet was dealing with trees, and now this 5th trumpet is dealing with trees. So we'd want to look at the 6th angel now. For the 4 corners of the temple, that's a repetition. So this temple having to do with spirituality instead of just the earth, the land. They also are 4 messengers, 4 angels, bound at the great river, which is called Parat. When you look at the description of them, the head of a lion, that matches the beast that comes from the sea, and their tails are like serpents. So now it looks like a chimera. It doesn't say that their feet are like bears, but like is a possibility, and that their body is like the leopard. But we are kind of like, it could have the description of this beast that comes from the sea, or it's very similar. So what you see this pattern is there could be a transgression where they belong in the sea, but they're coming up and intermingling with like land beasts. The serpents, the winged things were made on day 5 with the sea. So there's a transgression. And also on day 2, he had to divide the waters. There's some that fell below. So it's like this transgression is how I see it. With the first one, the 5th messenger, when we're repeating this pattern again, the first living creature being Judah, then it kind of ties in that the ones sealed are the 144,000 because this is Judah and all the tribes associated with him. With the second one, the word for west is Yam because speaking to Israel, the sea is on the west. So this beast coming up out of the sea could be a indication of west, though you could also say Euphrates is technically in the east, or if we're talking about the glassy sea, then it's in the north. But really, it's like this star that falls from heavens who does not belong here in the south, in the wells of water. So it's intermingling. So I don't know if you think there's a strong tie with this being like the west and south directions, or the calf and the man-faced. But then the 7th one is when the kingdoms of God are announced to be his. The world is like declared to be his with the 7th trumpet. So this is like taking us all the way back to this eternal day, which is like the first day, which is the 8th day, right? So it says for the days of creation, day 1, so not understood to be the first one, but the first of the 6 work days. Like the first of the month was more like a holiday, the first of the month to you with Nisan. So this takes us back to that eternal day where there's this spiritual light that is restored, and you don't need to look to the light of the sun or physical means. If anybody was worshiping these things, they're cast aside because they're not helpful anymore. So the 7th one being like light restored here on earth, the kingdom here on earth. Is just a pattern that seems to be there. But hey, if you want to just go with like the commentary thing, we'll just say that there's 7 angels, and that's because it includes all the angels of the world. Something like that. So, verse 2, but I want to look at, here you see a Aleph, and here you see a Tav. So we'll get to that, because we're talking about this unraveling of going backwards with the pattern of creation until we get to that eternal day. So it's interesting that we're going to see Aleph here and Tav here, and it's specifically the word for the letter Tav. So verse 2, Wera'ithi, and I saw Malach, angel, Ahar, another. Same word for Ahar here, so it's like a behind angel. So it's like we see this physical representation of 4 messengers, and then we're going to see like it's still more like a spiritual kingdom where first you're going on Judah, and then this intermingling being poured out on the peoples, like seas representing peoples, and then the kingdom being restored to original light. But here's like an angel behind what is seen. Shava, which, Shavo maybe, which go, Mezerach. Here is the word for rise, to rise, shine, glow, dawn, radiate, the blooming of the sun. So more specifically from the dawning, the blooming ha-shemesh, of the sun, we-lo, and to him haya, existed, ha-hothim, the seal, Mihael, from the God, Chai, life, the God, the living God, Kiyim. So the seal of God, if we're talking about 7 seals and we haven't opened up the 7th seal yet, he has the 7th seal to open. I don't know if there's a tie-in. I just thought of that because that's what all that's been mentioned so far regarding seals. If there is a tie-in with this seals, like it's the freshly opened 6th seal, because that's where the destruction is coming from this 6th seal, so it doesn't reach there. So it doesn't say we seal, because we're assuming this seal is to put it on, stamp the foreheads. If he has the seal of the 6th seal, then he's saying not to seal the foreheads, but to put a mark on them. But then that just brings a more question with the 5th angel, because they're sealed. Anyway, so the seal from the living God, we-kiyim. So not finding it here, and here it could mean miles. The closest one here is like a word for existing. I didn't find it with 2 yods. Existence, duration, permanence. So I guess if you extend that out, it's miles. Wetzaka. So he imposed, he charged is how it gets translated. And he cried. He shouted, he clamored, he hollered is the specific word used here. Bekol, in voice, gadol, great, leha arba, to the 4 malakim, angels, ha-nothan, the give, lahem, to them, lehazik, haaretz, to damage, harm, cause injury, detriment, maleficence, sake. So that noon there probably assimilated. It's lehazik. And so for the hifil, which is the causative form, you see a hey and a yod in there. So then the noon tends to like absorb into the other letters. So to cause damage, haaretz, the earth, hayam, and the sea. Right here it doesn't say the trees, which is interesting. They're just given to harm the earth and the sea. Amar, and said, El, to tiziko, le-haaretz. The same word here is still in the hifil, probably with that yod in there. To you cause damage. Oh, al is not, sometimes it can be to. Here it's not you cause damage to the earth, hayam, and to the sea. And now instead of saying and, it's interesting that we have this change. Like I've never really noticed this word before. I had to look it up. Or. So the word for or in Hebrew is o. So it's significant when there's things that are not typically there. La-eitz, to tree, Ngaze, until She'ethan, which given, or I given, because Nathan is gave, so that noon there also assimilated, to, or tav, and that's the word for mark. Okay, well, not this kind of mark, but the actual letter tav is spelled that way. Ngal metze hoth, upon forehead, matzach, the forehead or the brow, avadai, servants of Yud Hey Wow Hey. So later in chapter 14, we learn that they're virgins, that they're pure. So even if we're still speculating that they have not yet received Messiah, they are still servants of Yud Hey Wow Hey. So they're in covenant. They never became sinners to leave the covenant. So like they're righteous, they're not cursed. They will acknowledge their king, but it's like they're already in covenant. So it's like a different category here with these 12 tribes. Grass can represent all of humanity. So this is what is here today and gone tomorrow. It's flesh that is passing away. But only a third of the trees, which represents righteousness, like there's trees today that bear fruit, and it's speculated that originally all the trees bore fruit, and in the future all trees will bear fruit again. So it's like righteous ones, even though this physically happens here, it's also representing the spiritual state. So all flesh is grass, it's just gone. It departs. The green grass is pointing to the destruction of humanity, but the righteous ones, they can walk through the fire and not be harmed. In Torah, fruit trees were not to be used when laying a siege to a city, so they're for a good purpose, they're not for a destructive purpose. So they only have authority to harm the earth and the sea, but inadvertently, it's like the devil's trying to tempt even the righteous if he can. So he can't, they're sealed, but so it's like just the ones that bear fruit, they survive, even though we all do have to go through the fire. 2/3 of us may be able to come out through this fire, at least at this stage, right? Unharmed by it. A third of humanity will see with the sixth angel that they are wiped out. So just like the trees, also a third of humanity is wiped out. So it could be just kind of inadvertently because they don't have fruit, they don't have things to show. And so as the flesh goes away, then they don't have, they're just like grass. They're not like a strong tree that endures. What is living here? God and all those whom God is living in. So the damage comes to what is passing away anyway. Aleph, where ahare chen, and behind thus, in our manuscript it says chach, kof kof. Here is a kof noon. Ra'ithi saw arba, 4 malachim, angels, omdim, standing, be'arba, in 4 kenafoth, corners of, so the corners of haaretz, the earth, wayangatz, ru, should be, and holding, be'arba, in 4 ruhoth, spirits, haaretz, the earth, asher, which lo, not ti shov. I think this is like return. Shuv is return. Ruach, spirit or wind. Lo, not, or to, this might be to here. To ba'aretz, in the earth. We lo, and not bayam, in the sea. Maybe it's like not in the earth and not in the sea, and not welo be kol, in all gates, tree. Wa era, verse 8, and I saw malach, angel, ehar, another, ola, ascend. That's a new information. Mizreich, shemesh, from dawning of sun. Uviado, and in hand of him, Hothamath, seal, Elohim, God, spelled out fully. Hayim, living. Wayikra, and he cried. Kol, voice. Gadol, great. Al, to, so that's how to spell towards. This is lo, is not. Arba'ah, 4. Ha-malachim, the angels. Asher, which. Nithan, given. Lahem, to them. Leha-baal, I guess to hurt. Haaretz, the earth. Hayam, and the sea. Lamor, to say. Gimel, al, not. Instead of this lo, it's now like a different kind of negation. Not ti have lo. Same havil, same word for hurt. Eth, direct object marker. Haaretz, the earth. We'ath, direct object marker. Hayam, the sea. We'ath, ha'etz, and at the earth, the trees. Yez, until. Im, if. Ha-thamnu, seal instead of mark. Ath, direct object marker. I got lazy and was like with, but I think I just have to clarify every time. Gave they, servants of Eloheinu, God of us. Al, upon. Mitzhotham, foreheads. So this angel who has the Holy Spirit imposes on these other 4 angels that he would put a tav, the last letter, on these who will be the first fruits. And so these are called the servants of Yud-He, Waw-He, assuming that all the other servants have already been sealed. That's all for now. Thanks so much for joining, and Hashem bless you.